Hello, everybody, and welcome to Madden and Benz Unfiltered. Tim Benz and Mark Madden with you. This time it's me on Madden and Benz Unfiltered, trying to recover from a weekend of concerts. I went to both at the Arena for Pearl Jam. Mark was at the festival last weekend in Maryland. So, Mark, I think I treated my body like I was at a festival, even though it was just 2 nights up in the Hill District.
Yeah, they sold both nights out, didn't they?
They did. Legit sellouts. Crowd was packed. It was the last 2 nights of their tour. So I think those who tend to tour with them, and they do have a pretty good touring audience, they all filled it up at PPG Paints Arena.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan, I acknowledge, but wasn't there.
Good shout out for the Penguins. I think Eddie just got around to realizing they had won 2 Stanley Cups since the last time he was there. He also talked about Franco Harris a bunch, which I didn't realize that he had a relationship with Franco up until this tour on the way through.
Yeah, that's easy to say when the guy's dead.
He was using Franco Harris guitar picks, which I didn't know were a thing, but I guess they were. So if anybody wanted to bring up...
If they were a thing, Tim, I'm sure Franco got his cut.
If people want to comment on the concert, if you were there, great. Mark wasn't there. I was. Mark, we both watched Paul Skenes, though, dance his way through the Philadelphia Phillies lineup like it was a bunch of AAA guys. Unfortunately, Pirates hitters are a bunch of single-A guys. And a dude who's making his rookie debut struck him out 9 times, 14 overall, and the Pirates give Skenes no support in a loss.
Well, first off, Tim, did I ever tell you I was friends with Byron Whizzer Whites? We were very close. Yeah, the Pirates stink. I just turned a column into the Trib where I opine they should trade Skenes now because this isn't fair to him. And it's not fair to him. Every single player on their team stinks besides him. And you want to make a case for O'Neal Cruz? He's batting .223. He's 0 for his last 9 with 8 strikeouts. Ryan Reynolds hitting .203. Andrew McCutchen's a mascot who couldn't get a job anywhere in MLB but Pittsburgh. The entire team stinks but Skenes. So why not trade him now for a bunch of prospects? Pile them on top of Hunter Barco and Bubba Chandler. Keep selling a fake future. Or better yet, Nutting could make his greed naked for a change and sell Skenes for $250 million. But making him be part of this ain't the right thing.
Everybody's bemoaning Jared Jones's elbow, and yeah, that's too bad, but I don't mean to be callous about it, Mark. But what's the difference? I mean, if there's a year he's going to have to go through this, it might as well be this year. I wish he didn't have to go through it at all, but it might as well be this year because this is a lost season.
Well, yeah, but they should have had the surgery, months ago. If there was a possibility of it, it should have been done months ago. If it was inevitable, it should have been gotten out of the way. And by the way, if I'm Skenes, I fake elbow tightness. I want no part of what's going on.
Faking elbow tightness, though, just underlines concerns about his arm for whoever wants him in 2 years or whenever they trade him.
Not if his agent tells the Yankees, look, he's faking elbow tightness.
I mean, I don't know what leverage he has, but whatever leverage he does have, he should use, and I think he's already thinking about it. I don't know if anybody else noticed the shot that they had at the very end of the game in Philadelphia, but he was staring into center field like he was glaring into the void yesterday after losing 1-0.
Oh, that would have been a great shot, Tim. Play Black Sabbath into the void while he's doing it. that would have been tremendous. If I'm him, the first thing I do is pop off. I would say, listen, I thought these guys had a window while I was here, and they won't spend, they won't exercise it. They have no ambition here. And if they have no ambition, what am I doing here? That's the first thing I'd do if I were him, is talk.
Well, it looks like now there are plenty of teams that are willing to go down this path until we figure out what to do with the collective bargaining agreement, and maybe this time they can insert something that makes the owners on the bottom end of the payroll give a damn.
This has nothing to do with the collective bargaining agreement and what it might be after 2026. They don't want to spend. They don't want to compete. It's not a priority. This has nothing to do with waiting to see what happens. No matter what happens in 2026, Nutting won't spend. In fact, I would think he wouldn't want a cap because with the cap comes a floor, and that would mean him spending more. This has nothing to do with waiting and seeing. At least not from the Pirates' perspective.
Where I was going with it was from Skenes' perspective. What I was setting up was Skenes and other draft picks. This is going to go back to the days where, like players in the NFL tried to angle themselves away from being drafted by teams. I can't imagine why anybody, especially now with NIL and the ability to go back to school, which kind of always existed in baseball anyway, but now there's just more incentive to do it. The draft is going to be broken because players aren't going to come to teams like Pittsburgh. They're going to stay away.
Yeah, I don't think the NIL money is as gratuitous in baseball as in football. But yeah, if there weren't NIL money, I would refuse to come to the Pirates. I'd just go back in the draft. I'd play in Japan for a year. I'd do whatever. I just would not come to this broken organization.
Well, you talked about it. You said you wrote about it. I know you brought it up on the podcast too at Breakfast with Benz today. What does Skenes do? Because he doesn't have leverage per se to get himself out. How does he angle this? What's his play? What's his chip?
The first thing I do is pop off, like I just said. I talk about how I'm here to win, nobody else is. It's a terrible organization. The players are rotten. I make myself toxic in the clubhouse. I do anything I can to make it seem like a good idea to get rid of me.
You think he's wired that way? Because I don't.
Well, if he's not, then it's to his detriment. I bet his girlfriend's wired that way. Let her talk.
Well, that would get her followers up. She'd have all the Pirates fans lining up as if they aren't already on her Instagram page and whatnot.
Well, Tim, that's where Skenes has an advantage. I think Pirate fans would sympathize with him.
That's what I'm saying.
What I'm talking about. I think if he asked to be traded, they would say, yeah, go ahead, trade him. This is ridiculous.
That wouldn't be like a George Pickens thing because people are so anti-management right now with the Pirates that they would back a player who was trying to be combustible in the clubhouse. They would like that.
This is absolutely embarrassing. They're on pace to lose 110 games. They're on pace to be historically bad. And what is just amazing to me is that the media won't turn on them. The stooge media. I can't say this enough. I still keep reading stories, Tim. Well, if they brought Chandler up, and what about Hunter Barco? And if they batted this guy here and moved that guy to this position, no, they stink. They have one good player. They're owned by a con. The GM's incompetent, and it doesn't matter who the manager is.
Well, I mean, I don't know what Bubba Chandler's hitting background was, but was he as good as Paul Skenes was at Air Force? Were these guys supposed to Bugs Bunny their way through this against the Gas House Gorillas, hit and pitch and field and everything? Because they can't do it all.
Well, no, but there's a grain of truth in what you say. The media keeps writing like they can finagle their way to being better. You can't shine excrement. They absolutely stink.
Are you of the mind then that they should just get rid of Cherington now and forget about the draft and worry about it later? Or you still think that just practically that's too impractical to do?
I'm of the mind that we should forget the Pirates ever existed as a media and just don't cover them and talk about them minimally. I mean, the Skenes outrage, him being so good and them being so bad around him, even that'll pass him. Even the buzz with Skenes is passing. You watch, the numbers for him pitching are going to dip drastically at PNC Park.
Well, they already have.
They'll be better than the average crowd. But, if you can't win, people don't care.
Well, you're not going to get – it's clear they're not going to get 20,000 on a weekday night or a weekend or weekday afternoon. They're never going to get those numbers. Like this time it lines up that he's there on a Friday. That's probably the best thing for him because
Tim,
at least
if he was doing the Steve Carlton thing from like 72 in Philadelphia when they lost 97 games but Carlton won 27, they would get big crowds even on a weekday. But the way it is now, they got no shot.
And he's so much better on the road. I think he just likes pitching in front of people, Mark. I think that's a big part of it.
Tim, do you agree with me about the media and the way this team's covered? That they look for all these positive stories to write, and they're just not doing what should be done, which is excoriating every second, just scorched earth.
Yeah, I think that there's an element of there's an attempt to try to be impartial, and by doing that, telling the other side of the story, but there's no other side of the story right now. That's the problem.
Right. And you look at O'Neal Cruz is a joke. He's a joke. He's hitting 223. Brian Reynolds is a joke. Brian Hayes is a joke. Andrew McCutchen is a mascot. He couldn't get a job with any other team in baseball. But we talk about these guys like they're serious people. And to quote Logan Roy, they are not serious people.
I think some of it, Mark, is like there's just an onus to be felt to not do the negative thing over and over and over again, but I don't know what else there is to say. I otherwise I just feel
No,
like you're.
but Tim, that's not why they're doing it. They're doing it because they want to go in the clubhouse and say, "Hey, Kutch, how you doing? Good seeing you, Kutch. Hey, Reynolds, what's going on?" They don't want to be stared down. And Tim, I got to tell you, I live for the stare down. Then again, I'm not in that clubhouse.
With Reynolds, you're never going to get a good soundbite, even if he's contending for the Triple Crown. That's an awful long way to go to work for that.
Well, the Triple Crown schedule's too tightly packed together anyway, Tim.
Oh, you're talking about journalism. Journalism actually winning, Mark. How about that?
I think it's the funniest thing in the world that after 125 years of the Triple Crown races being on the same weekends, suddenly we're worried about the horses getting tired. I mean, how do we know the horses are tired? Are they yawning?
That's right. They're filing a workers' comp protest.
Yeah, I mean, here's how I think about these horses.
Scratch your hoof twice if you're tired.
If they're tired, who cares? If they stumble, they're glue. What's the difference?
Let's get to the Aaron Rodgers thing, Mark. Speaking of things that'll never change. I mean, like I don't know what else to say about this one either, because it's been talked out. I don't know. Does it matter now when he shows up? I think he should show up at least for the mini camp, even if it's not mandatory, because you can't find him if he hasn't signed a contract.
Mandatory. The mini camp is mandatory.
Well, no, it is, but it's not mandatory if he hasn't signed yet, if he's not a Steeler yet.
Oh, he's not coming to mini camp. He's not signing by then. He just isn't. He doesn't want to do that. That's why he hasn't signed, to avoid all that stuff and not be criticized for it.
You said you're not buying what Ian O'Connor put out there, right? His biographer, when he said that he's kind of patched up things with his family, and that might be where this personal issue is coming from.
I don't think there ever were personal issues. I think he fabricated those to avoid signing and avoid coming to stuff he doesn't want to attend, like OTAs and minicamp. Now, if he did reconcile with his family, I think he's such a conniver that he would say, okay, what can I do to avoid OTAs? Picks up the phone. Hey, mom and dad.
Well, look, where I am on this comes back to, why are we talking about it so in depth? Like, is Aaron Rodgers going to be the difference between a 4-win team that doesn't go to the playoffs and a 9 or 10-win team that does? Absolute ceiling for Aaron Rodgers is 9 wins. The Steelers' floor with Mason is probably 6 or 7. So could he be a 3-game different quarterback? That's a big difference. I don't think so, because I don't think he lasts 17 games. I think
this ain't Aaron Rodgers MVP years. This is Aaron Rodgers at 41. Yeah, I totally agree. I think this whole thing's been a joke, and I think the Steelers have sacrificed. They're constantly eroding dignity even more. And I think this is just so the head coach can get the headline he wants so badly, being the egomaniac and megalomaniac that he is. Hall of Fame quarterback joins Hall of Fame coach in Pittsburgh. That's all this is about.
Do you think the Olave stuff was true? I think they probably did make a phone call at least.
No, I think the guy down the dial made it up.
Oh, you do? Completely?
Yeah. I think he does it all the time.
See, I thought it makes sense for them to inquire. It does. I mean, if there's breadcrumbs there, the breadcrumbs make sense.
Not to me it doesn't, because, he's owed, 20-something million on the 5th-year option, which they picked up. And for a guy with concussions, I just am not interested.
Okay. I see the difference between being interested and having it make sense. I think it does make more sense for them just to sign a free agent wide receiver and not put draft capital into a guy that could be an injury case.
Amen. Exactly. It would make more sense to sign Amari Cooper or Keenan Allen or whoever, because you wouldn't be on the hook for that ticket in 26.
Have you checked in on anybody you know in Toronto today, Mark?
No, but I'm going to start tweeting soon. I fell asleep before the game actually wrapped, but boy, that was more glorious than D-Day.
It was funny because I was at this concert last night, and Pearl Jam on occasion like wandered off the hits path, which they are want to do sometimes. They played some lesser known songs, and these kids in front of me were watching the hockey game on their phone. And like you saw all these eyes going down to people's phones across, different parts of the arena, just watching the Panthers score again and again and again. You're seeing these reactions around the arena like, oh, they scored again. They scored again.
Well, that's why are you familiar with the website called setlist.com?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, because I always time my bathroom breaks because I know the set list.
Yeah, but you can't with Pearl Jam. They have, so many albums, and all their albums are so long, they wander off of it all the time. It was a completely different set list from one night to the other.
Okay, as soon as I heard something I didn't know, then I would head for the bathroom.
Well, that's what people are doing with their phones. Like, okay, this one's from like Backspacer. Take the phone out and start looking and watching the Toronto game.
It's funny because when Aerosmith did their residency at Park MGM in Vegas, I heard that they got criticized by the promoter because for a while they wouldn't change their set list from night to night. And when you're doing a residency, you really, I think, need to do that because you have like people going on consecutive nights or even, 3 shows in a row, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the one night I was there, the second night of my run of Aerosmith shows, and Tyler yells, "Hey, Steven, when you going to change the effing set list, Steven? And they went in to draw the line, which they had not been doing, which happens to be my all-time favorite Aerosmith song.
All right, let's get to some comments here. This comes from Sean. We'll just pick up right here. Sean says, RIP Toronto. What do you think becomes of the Leafs, Mark? How much do they blow it up now? And do any of them wind up with the Penguins? Is Marner coming?
Marner's not coming here. They'd be dumb to bring him here. You don't bring that guy in at the beginning of your rebuilding, or I guess right now they're partway through. You bring that guy in at the end of your rebuilding when you know exactly what you need. That's where the Leafs got themselves into trouble because they signed Tavares to that long-term deal, him being a Toronto guy. And then when Nylander, Matthews, and Marner all developed, they didn't need Tavares. I mean, he's still a good player, but they needed that money to use on goaltending and defense. So I think Marner's going to walk. He won't come to Pittsburgh. I don't know why he'd want to, for that matter. And I don't know. I think they got to take a long, hard look at everybody. Austin Matthews, it depends on whether or not you believe he played hurt all year, which a lot of people say he did, but he had a crap season and a crap playoff.
Yeah, the next comment I wanted to get to was from somebody who said, what do you think about what Matthews said about there being too many passengers on board when he only had 1 goal in 7 games? I hadn't seen that quote, but yeah, it rings a little hollow, I guess.
Maybe he was referring to himself.
He might have been a passenger. Yes. What else did I want to...
That's one where if you have 1 goal in the series, you need to say me included.
Calvin says, Rodgers or no Rodgers, will it be the season Tomlin's winning season record comes to an end? Remember, it's not winning, it's non-losing, and the answer to the question is, I think so. I think it's done.
My answer to the question for years has been, that's Ben's streak anyway.
Well, it goes back to, 03? So, yeah, pretty much it goes back with him, although they've carried it on without him, but it's never been threatening to do anything in the playoffs without him.
You see, that's right, Tim. I just don't care about this streak. Okay, I'm from Pittsburgh. I grew up in the 70s. I know what the goal of the franchise is, and I know they still say that, but they didn't used to lie about
it. This one says, go get Shane Falco. How about, I almost prefer Coach Jimmy McGinty at this point.
I'd prefer Coach, I don't know, Jim Render, Jack McCurry, a real good high school coach.
Yeah, he's got to have a lot of culpability for this, Mark, and I think people are starting to pick up on that.
He doesn't. No, he has none. No culpability.
Not from the owner. No, but I do.
Who do you think is calling him on it? The national media? Maybe
some of the national media is rounded in on that some, actually.
No, we're going to hear the same stuff after Rodgers signs. You can always count on a Mike Tomlin team, and this is a big piece in the puzzle.
Jonathan says, even if the Pirates had a new manager willing to new owner willing to spend hundreds of millions, the Stooges forget it's still Pittsburgh. This is not a destination city for free agents. It's cold. It's dirty. Did we not learn our lesson even from all the years in Sid's prime where people didn't want to sign here and play with the best player and went to places like Dallas, Sunrise, and San Jose?
I'm not sure the Penguins made many big runs at free agents during the Sid years.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I was trying to think of like free agent dollars.
And not only that, see, that's an unfair comparison. That's somebody wanting to like put a burden on the Penguins to deflect from the Steelers. No, when you had Sid,
like Hossa, when they tried to keep Hossa, he went to Detroit. He stayed. Yeah, he went to Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, but Detroit was a real good team.
Yes.
And made the final again, and Pittsburgh beat him. But like, the Penguins are already paying Sid, Gino, Letang, Fleury, etc. That's just an inaccurate accusation.
Yeah, they got Paul Martin, Zabinik Mahalik. I mean, those were free agents that they got. They tried free agent defensemen a bunch.
Right, and they weren't going to go for superstars up front because they already had plenty of them.
Frank says, if Rodgers rides in that dumb yellow Duck Hodges and signs a contract, will he get the keys to the city? Oh, that stupid duck thing. Is that coming back?
I don't know. I would like to ask our people who send in queries to make them make sense.
You know what? So long as he's not,
and I know Frank. So no offense, Frank, but do better. Come on.
So long as he doesn't come in the Mexican ship that hit the Brooklyn Bridge. Did you see that thing? Did you see the video of that?
No. What was the damage?
2 people died in it, and there was like 19 other people hurt. There was this ship that was on a goodwill mission that they were floating up to Iceland, and it lost control. It lost its rudder. It lost power, and it crashed into the Brooklyn Bridge. And
how did they go from going to Iceland to hitting the Brooklyn Bridge?
No, they're going up to Iceland. I don't know how they got the boat here from Mexico, if they floated it the whole way up somehow.
Right, but like going into New York Harbor and hitting the Brooklyn Bridge is kind of out of the way of that path.
Well, it was showy. It's like a goodwill thing. It was there for 5 days, and then, they were going to ship it up. I don't know how you do that, but they were trying to do it, and they hit the bridge. The footage was unbelievable. It's all over the place.
That tells us all we need to know about acts of goodwill.
Jeremy says Pirates not being able to get a win, even with Skenes pitching, is a severe disappointment. We'll get ready to be disappointed because it happens all the time.
Yeah, they're 3-7 in games he started. His record is 3-5.
And if you look at what he's done on the road, his road splits against home are just vastly different. He's like a different guy when he pitches.
Do you think people understand that O'Neal Cruz stinks? That Brian Reynolds stinks?
They should figure it out with Cruz.
I just think that people don't understand what this team really is. I think some people think this team could be doing better. I think this team is doing exactly as its roster dictates.
Well, one thing I'd say about Reynolds is a lot of people are saying he's playing hurt. Well, IL him then, because he's not helping. He's making things worse if he's hurt. Put him on the IL.
Yeah, it's always an excuse, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't know how hurt he is or not.
Always an excuse.
George says, what happens first? Rodgers gets signed, or the Pirates get 5 runs. Waiting for the show at McGee while waiting for my son to be born. Well, good luck with that.
Who would bring a child into a world where the Pirates are this bad?
That's right. This is on you. You're bringing your kid into a world where Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback. Mexican ships are hitting the Brooklyn Bridge. And you got to worry about a Pirates team that might lose 115 games this year.
That would have been kind of a good thing to stir in. Remember the scene in Saturday Night Fever where the kid falls off the bridge?
Oh, my God. No, I don't, honestly. I don't remember that.
Combine the two, do a remake.
I haven't seen Saturday Night Fever in forever. I really haven't.
You should again. That is an all-time excellent movie.
What movie were we talking about at length the other day? Oh, Tombstone. Are you a Tombstone guy or not?
Yes, absolutely.
Tom loves Tombstone. I know that. He's a huge Tombstone guy.
I think there are many cliched Western parts about it, but that's part of what the charm is.
Oh, I know what it was. It was something about bashing somebody's head in, right? Weren't you guys having like the best wedding or the best scenes where somebody got their head bashed in?
Yeah, I mean, Tom's in charge of that.
The Three Amigos or whatever it is, right?
Yeah,
trifecta.
Yeah.
And you also had, I can't believe when you did that, you didn't have Gladiator. Didn't somebody get their head bashed in the original Gladiator and Braveheart too?
Yeah, again, he's in charge of that team. He watches more movies than me. I will say the most chilling scene in Tombstone.
Yeah.
And it got started right off the bat was when they shot up the wedding.
Yeah, see, that's when we left off when we were talking about wedding massacre scenes. We should have put Tombstone in there for sure. That was a good one.
Yeah, I mean, that was just, and they're dragging the bride into the church to do God knows what, except I'm pretty sure I know what.
And God knows what too in the church.
Johnny Ringo, my God.
Bill says the Steelers will finish 7-10 at best, regardless of who is under center. I think he's right. I think this is the year the streak ends.
I think we'll know right off the bat. I'm picking them to lose to the Jets at New York week 1. Fields beats Rodgers. And I think if that happens, then, yeah, I think that's the harbinger of what happens, that they do have a losing year.
Yeah, I mean, I heard a lot of people when the schedule came out doing the whole win-loss thing, which I don't see a point of generally. And this year,
lazy.
I think it's even more silly because you don't know who this team's quarterback is, and 7 games are on the schedule, 2 against the Browns and then 6 others, where the opposition has a new coach, quarterback, or both. So it's just ridiculous to do the win-loss thing to start the year. I mean, I get it, but people also then they have an idea in their head of what the Steelers are going to be, and then if they go win-loss, it doesn't add up. You just go back and modify your picks.
Well, yeah, it's wasted time is what that game-by-game stuff is. The 2 games I'm looking forward to, the Jets game and Week 6 when Cleveland visits, because you got to figure Shador or Pickett will be the quarterback.
This one comes from, no, not Jeremy, I'm sorry. Richard. He says, nobody should be surprised that the Pirates are horrible this season, especially as they did just about nothing this past offseason, and their biggest free agent signing was the washed-up fam. I tend to agree with that. This offseason, I think, is the biggest slap in the face to Pirates fans from nutting, that they had a pitching staff, they had a star pitcher, they had an option and an opportunity to spend, and he decided to do none of it.
You know what I think a big problem there is? That people like Travis Williams, the president, and obviously Ben Sherrington, the GM, that they're just puppets and co-conspirators. What you need there is somebody to speak truth to power. Like if the GM had said to Nottingham, look, this team just isn't good enough. We're not close to being a team that can win, 81 games, let alone contend for a playoff spot. And but I think it's probably the other option, that they're co-conspirators, know exactly what Nottingham wants and act accordingly.
Pete says, who will be the quarterback in 2025, the number 1 quarterback? Well, Pete, I think the quarterback will be all 3 of them. I think that Rodgers is going to start and get hurt. I think they're going to go to Mason. I think it's going to start to crumble late. They'll be desperate, and they'll get a look at Howard and hope he sparks them. And then they'll be 7-10 and miss the playoffs. That's what I think.
Tim, don't you think, and I know this is a word that's thrown around inaccurately, don't you think they've sacrificed a lot of their dignity through all this? Don't you think they look foolish?
Yeah.
Cuckolded?
Yeah, and I think it took something as dynamic as Aaron Rodgers related headlines to get some people in the national media to say that.
Yeah, these aren't the Steelers anymore. To be fair, they probably haven't been for quite some time. I think we talked about this on the podcast at one point. I love the guy on the B team the other week said, well, I think this team will really get run good by Danny Rooney. How would you know that? How would you know that? We know nothing about Danny Rooney. I think Art Rooney II is living proof that football knowledge is not based on genetics.
Besides that, what else is somebody going to say there? Like, why bother bringing that up in a vacuum of discussion? Because you're not going to say, well, I think Dan Rooney is going to stink and he's going to lose the team.
Well, no, the bottom line is you don't know. You don't know. But, I mean, there's no shortage of people in this burg that want to have their lips firmly planted on the Rooney butt.
Finally, Mark, we missed another good party with Antonio Brown. Did you see that video?
I did, yes.
How come we never get invited to the fun ones?
Because we're white. That's my Plex story.
What's that?
Remember what was the guy's name? Warren from Cleveland was at a big party Plex had.
Oh, Jared Warren, yeah, with the gun thing.
Well, we had Plex on my show not long after that. Jack Ham and I were co-hosting like we used to.
Yeah.
And Plex, Plex was my neighbor. We got along always, right?
I loved Plex, yeah.
Yeah, and I said to Plex, I go, Plex, how come me and Jack didn't get invited to the party? I thought we were cool. Is it because we're white? And he goes, well, y'all are white.
That's one Plex got right.
Yeah.
All right, that'll do it for Madden Benz Unfiltered. Mark's on at 3 o'clock today. Listen to him on 105.9 The X. We will be back on Memorial Day. We're going to do a Memorial Day live stream. That's not going to change for the holidays, so be watching here next Monday.
The day of the Liverpool parade, Tim.
That's right, and then we got to celebrate the Liverpool parade, too.
And I love a parade.